two different worlds. One is an international restaurant entrepreneur, the other an international actor and comedian. How did their paths cross, and who's really helping who in their business relationship? We'll also ask them about the good times and the bad, the funny sides and the sad of our guest, Rocky Aoki and Flip Wilson, on this edition of Black Focus. And good Sunday morning and welcome to Black Focus. I'm your host, Jay Johnson. Our guest, just two great people. One who makes fantastic hibachi steaks and another who makes fantastic jokes.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome to Black Focus. Flip, how did you and Rocky come together?
Well, I would have to say, I have to mention that I had a friendship and an affection for Benihana restaurants before Rocky and I met. And this came about, believe it or not, through Mary Wilson of the Supremes.
Oh, really?
I had promised Mary that I would take her to lunch, and I was 2 years late on fulfilling my commitment. And finally, we were in New York doing an engagement at the Apollo, and she said, I want to go to that luncheon date that you promised me. And she and I went. She said she wanted to go to Benihana. I had never been to Benihana. So I went to Benihana, and we had a very interesting lunch, and we got in a fine conversation with 2 or 3 young guys around the table there, young executives. And after lunch, they offered to pay for my lunch, and I wanted to reciprocate to pay for theirs. So they said, the guys, one of the fellas said, I'm a stockbroker. He said, and if you call me tomorrow and say that you want 10 shares of this stock, I will set it aside. He said, and don't put up any money. And at the end of 2 weeks, you see where the stock is gone, and at that time, you can send me the money, and I will send you the difference. So I did that, and in 2 weeks, the stock had gone to $2,700, and then I sent him $500. And that's what I made from $1,700 from just having a pleasant, great lunch at Benihana. And it was 2 years after that that Rocky and I personally met, because my guy doing my public relations was a very good friend of Rocky's, and he brought both of us together. In fact, Rocky was one also who led to my meeting Muhammad Ali. He introduced me to Muhammad. He's a very good friend of Muhammad, and he's really contributed in that way.
Let me ask you, Rocky, the name Benihana, you would immediately think, if you were not Japanese, that that was the name of a person. But it really has something to do with a flower, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Beni is red, Hana is flower in Japanese. So that's a very simple name, a red flower.
Now, why did you choose Benihana?
Well, in Japan, in the restaurant business, we use, a lot of people use flower name, water name, and these kind of names. So we simply use Benihana. Besides, my father opened his own coffee shop in Japan called Benihana. So I just stole name from my father.
I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you a story that I heard, and you can tell me how wrong I am, if I am. Benihana started out in New York selling ice cream, or something like that, in a small vendor, and progressed from that to restaurants. Am I right or wrong?
Well, yes. I went into so many jobs while I was a student here in this country. And I got one job selling ice cream in Harlem, driving Mr. Softy. And black kids went crazy with my ice cream with a little paper umbrella on the top of it. And I made $10,000 and opened up a very tiny 4-table restaurant in New York City.
And it was called?
Called Benihana, yes.
Is that right? And now how many restaurants do you own?
53 or 54 in this country, 25 in Japan, 1 in Canada.
And I've also heard, Flip, now you can confirm this, that his restaurants here are called Benihana's of Tokyo, and in Tokyo it's Benihana's of New York.
Yes. And also, I have one of the stoves from that first restaurant, one of the 4, and he sent out his #1 chef, and I also do the hibachi cooking myself. I've cooked for up to a party of 18 at my house.
Is Benihana's a corporation, or is it a franchise?
Benihana is a chain restaurant, corporation. We just, excuse me, we just went public, subsidiary of Benihana called Benihana National. We just went public maybe 2 months ago.
That's fantastic. Flip, everybody knows you, but nobody really knows the hard times that you went through. What were they like? How did you get started?
Well, I started in the service. I started professionally after I was discharged from the service. I started in San Francisco in 1954 after being discharged from the service. I first worked as a bellhop from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon at this hotel, and then I came back from 6 to 10, and I was helping in the office with the paperwork, and then from 10 to 2 I was doing the shows downstairs in the nightclub. And Louis Jordan in the Timpani 5 came to town, and I asked the owner, could I do the intermissions? So I was doing the intermissions for Louis Jordan. Mm-hmm. That was my first engagement.
And where was that?
At the Manor Plaza Hotel in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Is San Francisco home for you?
No, I am originally from Jersey City, New Jersey, but I had gone into service at 16 to eat. I went in 1950 to eat, and then 7 days after I was in, the war started. So after getting out, there was no sense in me going back to Jersey. There was nothing there for me based on the circumstances. I felt I would be more competitive if I stayed away from that environment. And it worked out. My first 11 years, I made less than $700 a year.
Mm-hmm. Is it harder to get started as a comedian than, let's say, a recording artist?
Well, it'd be very difficult for me to answer that question because I wouldn't even consider attempting trying to make a living as a vocalist. I mean, knowing my potential. I think that the two fields are there's such a difference between the two fields. I think that you, with your experience and that background, could give a better critique than me on that.
Well, I've had 2 very successful failures, so I don't think I'd be very good at that. I want to ask you something.
Yes.
I want to get personal with you.
Yes.
I don't know if the cameras can get a tight shot of this or not, but what is this that is written on your arm?
This is Oath of Friendship to Rocky, and this is Love, Honor, and Respect, Brother to Brother to Rocky Oki.
When did you do that?
About 5 years ago. Yes. Now, let me mention that this ring here, I don't know if the camera can see this ring. This ring, I was invited to the, right after Bing Crosby's death, I had been going to the Bing Crosby tournament, but no one had I never attended any public affairs where tribute was being paid to Rocky, and it came up, so I felt that, I learned after Bing's death, I recognized that you should pay tribute to a man when he's alive. So I canceled on the Bing thing, and I flew into Central Park, at the affair in Central Park at Tavern on the Green, and he was receiving an award as Benny Britt's Man of the Year. And on my way to my seat, I saw this was a stick pin on the guy's lapel, and I stopped to admire it. And the guy said, well, you're going to have to, he said, it's my favorite piece of jewelry, and you're going to have to let go of my stick pin. So he went to his seat, they called Rocky up to give him his award, and he asked me to come up. He said, I'd like to share this tribute with my friend, and he asked me to come up. And I got up, and I think I closed with saying that I wanted to compliment the people because I felt that this exemplified what America stands for. When a black man flies 3,000 miles across country into a blizzard to attend a Jewish affair where the MC was an Irishman to pay tribute to a Japanese. And the audience came to their feet, and the guy walked out of the audience and said, you like this here? And it was one of his friends.
Yeah, Bill Wishnek.
President of a steel company.
Of, Whitco Chemical.
Yes. And he just stuck it on my lapel.
People do that for you all the time. People seem to love Flip Wilson.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. I like me. I've always tried to be what I thought would be the kind of person who would represent my idol. I mean, I think that everyone is great and everyone should like themselves. People have always responded in this way, and it just allowed me to be a better me and to constantly become better.
Rocky, who's helping who? Is it you helping Flip, or is Flip helping you more?
I think 99% Flip is helping me.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You know what it is? Between this guy and I, we have to try to avoid saying that you even need help, because it's just a matter of seeing. The time that we can spend in each other's company. His world and mine are so different, but whenever time we can get together, we can just be together, and there isn't that competitive thing and everyone trying to figure out, well, what does this person want from me? I have to avoid even saying that, can you show me a watch? See this watch? Ooh. This watch. He came to my house, he had the watch on like this, and I said, that's a beautiful watch, and he left that watch. At my house. So I have to avoid even saying that now ballooning, I'm in ballooning, he said, come on and fly in the balloon. And I went to the balloon race, I flew with him. Next thing I know, I'm a balloon pilot. I had my hot air license, and then I got my helium license, and I fly the Benihana balloons.
He went to Japan.
That's right.
To crew for me from Japan to United States, Trans-Pacific balloon.
Oh boy. Okay, I got to tell you something on that flight.
All right.
Okay. He said, Rocky said to me, he said, but when the balloon gets ready to launch, he said, I want you to sing the national anthem. So I said, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't we have the wives of all the guys flying, and we all sing the national anthem, because I'm not a singer, and I wouldn't want to risk singing. You know how difficult it is to sing the national anthem. So he said, I want my people of my country to hear you sing the national anthem. He said, when the balloon takes off, he said, the last thing I want to hear is you singing the national anthem. So I said, okay, buddy, but I kind of hid, because I was afraid. I'm not going to know the national anthem. Now, they had the big orchestra from the high school there, and the guy, one of the people came over to the hotel, and they found me, and he said, Mr. Oki said, they're waiting, and nothing's going to go off until you come to sing the national anthem. And I went, and I stood there, and I visualized Paul Robeson in my ear, and I sang the national anthem. I had not even rehearsed, and I saw Paul Robeson in my head, and when I heard the national anthem, when it got to the end of it, I didn't realize I knew all the lyrics. And when it got to the end, I was sorry it was over.
You want to give us a bar?
No, but I didn't realize that I could. And I received an invitation to sing it at the World Series after that.
Flip Wilson and Rocky continue with more right after this. Irashamase. Is that welcome?
Irashamase.
Pretty close anyway, huh? Yeah. Let me ask you, aside from being a restaurateur and a balloonist, you are now getting into submarines.
Yes, I just retired offshore powerboat racing. So now I wanted to do something else and found a submarine. And I've been doing this for quite a few months now. As a matter of fact, Flip and I went to Bahama and to test a submarine from Johnson & Johnson company.
Now, let's get into perspective. We're not talking about a nuclear sub. I mean, we're talking about a small sub, right?
Yes, we're talking about 2-passenger and 1-passenger submarine created by my friend in Oakland, California. I'm going to take this to find a dinosaur bone in near Tallahassee called Lake Wakura Spring. Try to get dinosaur bone. Then we travel with submarines all over the world to find a sunken ship, treasure, and maybe emergency purpose. The government wants to use us. Now Flip wants to do the same thing with me.
Are you guys eccentric? I mean, is this something that is the norm for folks that have this kind of money?
Well, let me tell you, I have to say that from our friendship, he's taught me how to relax. I've learned how to relax, how to step back and really enjoy it. And I think it's contributed to my being more creative and to my being more proficient in my work.
Speaking of creativity and proficiency, we know that you have just about every award that has ever been offered.
Yes.
An entertainer.
Yes.
From the Emmys to Grammys to you name it.
Yes.
We don't see you on television anymore. We don't.
Yes.
We don't know how you make it. How do you make it? How do you remain proficient?
Well, I felt in the first place, television was basically for the purpose of becoming established. The essence of performing and the pleasure of performing is performing before live audiences. And television served the purpose of establishing me and also of allowing me to provide the security for my family that I desired. I do enjoy television, and I look forward to going back to television. I'm in the process now of preparing to shoot 2 pilots, one for a half-hour situation comedy of Evan Leroy, and the other for a half-hour game show. So there's a possibility there may be 2 shows that might possibly go in mid-season.
When was the last TV show you actually aired? Your own, the Flip Wilson Show. What year was that?
Well, the show was recently just concluded 3 years of syndication. For 3 years it was in syndication on 120 stations.
But the standard run, when it was...
76. 76.
So from 76 till now, you've just been doing
But
Las
I
Vegas,
stopped
or?
doing any appearances for a long time. For 10 years, I didn't make any personal appearances. I gave up my television show when I received custody of my kids. And I felt that that required all of my attention because I had been successful in my work because I had supervised how it was done. And I knew that the only way that my family was going to be raised in the way that it should was for me to devote the same attention to that I had devoted to my work. And my kids are older now. One of my sons is in the Navy. David, you met the kids when you came to the house. The oldest son, David, is in the Navy. He's about to re-enlist. The other one does security work in Florida. My girls are 17 and 13. So now I can really stretch out. I'm having more fun than I ever had.
But for most entertainers, they have such a struggle in trying to make ends meet during that time. 10 years of sabbatical, you know, what do you do? How do you make it?
Well, what I did during this 10 years was I reflected and I learned the value of my ideas. In the beginning, I was just thoughts. And then, like, during the course of my television show, it was like for me going to a great university. Because I was the artist, but the people around me, my lighting man, my sound man, my musical director, and my staff had spent just as much time and had just as great a proficiency in their areas. And by them, our association, it helped me learn the value of my ideas. And as I sat back and I reflected on these things, I have many tunes that are parodies that I've written, and many areas that I was working on for when I started working again, because it's my desire to be the last of the great vaudevillians, the last of the traditional vaudevillians. And that is something to do with television. There aren't that many people left to hold down the caliber of variety show that was held before. That type of thing is gone. The whole medium is changing, and I don't know where it's going.
We want to find out about Geraldine and Reverend Leroy as Black Focus continues right after this. Rocky Aoki from Benihana's and Flip Wilson are our guest on this edition of Black Focus, and I've always wanted to know more and more about the characters that you've created.
Okay.
One of my favorites is Geraldine.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to give you my interpretation of Geraldine.
The devil made me do it, honey.
Very good. Stay out of show business. Don't put a dress on. You can knock me right out of the box. Yeah.
How did you create Geraldine?
My class was doing the life story of Clara Barton, the founder of the American Red Cross. Caucasian girl in the class was supposed to play Clara Barton's part. I was merely supposed to play a wounded soldier. And I laid at the foot of the stage with my back to keep from making faces at the cast. The teacher didn't want me. The day of the show, the little Caucasian girl did not show up. And I said to the teacher, I could do the part, because I had been threatening the other kids, because I had no lines, so I had been telling them for days, I could do your part too. Do your part too. So the teacher picked up the script, and she picked a few random spots, and she asked me, and I answered correctly. So she put that little, you know, those little long gray coats that they had, and the little high button shoes that snapped on the side and the little bonnet on me, and she turned my back, and the curtain went up, and turned around, and the audience exploded in laughter. And Clara Barton's life story became a comedy. It was 30 years after that, when I got ready to start my television series, that I put the dress on again. 30 years, 38 years old now, before I realized the value of that idea, and suddenly it took off. I always say that Geraldine is my most popular, Reverend Leroy is my favorite, but Flip is my idol.
Who's your favorite, Rocky?
Flip.
Flip. Do you ever do, I mean, how about giving us a little rendition of both Reverend Leroy and Geraldine? Just a little bit.
Well, Geraldine,
Does she know Reverend Leroy? She ever been to his church?
Oh, yes, because Geraldine, Reverend Leroy hounds Geraldine, because he tells her that when it's time to collect the wages of sin, she can expect time and a half. You know, but Geraldine, I don't like having her around. She shows up for the money on the big engagements, you know, but last year when I was here, you remember what happened last year when she almost disrupted the balloon race.
I remember.
And I've been trying to avoid her. There's too much friction between us.
Do you think that it takes like a split personality to do those things?
No.
What's your zodiac sign?
I'm Sagittarian. Pisces rising.
Okay.
I put it like this way. I can understand. Now, Sammy Davis and I both had the same birthday, December 8th, and I can understand the comparison, and I did a lot of comparison between Sammy and myself. And he has the same versatility, but all of the characters that he do are characters of impressions of other people, and I just created my own characters. And I took the people from my childhood. Like lots of times when I used to work with small shows, when I would just see the black chicks down in front of the bandstand saying, "Oh, give it up, honey." Yes, yeah, just having fun. And I was looking at them and I was saying, that might seem absurd to be so loose, but for that split second, they were happy and they were free, and I wanted everybody to enjoy what I saw in that split second of freedom. So I felt that by them saying they were impersonating me, then that means they don't have to take the blame for having a good time. Okay? So it gives everybody an excuse to really let themselves go.
I'm going to write something down here for you.
Okay.
And I want you to say it into that camera, camera 1.
Yes.
And do it in Reverend Leroy's
Okay.
vernacular.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, very shortly, Black Focus will continue. Truly wonderful.
Welcome back to Black Focus. Rocky and Flip are our guest on this edition. Rocky, what is new in line for your corporation?
Well, we are going into a frozen food selling here in this country this coming November, and 5 items, and noodle time. We serve nothing but 10 kind of noodles.
These will be bought over the counter at stores?
Yes.
What about within the restaurants? Anything new?
Within the restaurant, since Americans love seafood items, we are adding lobster, scallop, and these kind of seafood.
Flip loves seafood.
Yes, and I think I can clarify that on the noodle thing, you were thinking of whether the noodles were going to be sold. He's having the noodle type restaurant where you go up to the window in the community area and you buy the different types of noodles that you want and go sit and eat the noodles.
A name for
it's
that?
It's a different
yet?
kind
The
of
noodle time.
Noodle
time.
Of Indiana or Tokyo?
Very good. Very
Flip,
good.
I don't know if there's an inner circle in Las Vegas or not, but you don't see a lot of black actors and entertainers
Yes.
in Las Vegas. You see the Bill Cosbys, the Diana Rosses, the Flip Wilsons, and there are specifically at certain hotels, Cosby at the Hilton, Diana Ross at the Caesars, and you at Thunderbird.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, my only answer could be that there are very few entertainers, period, who can headline and make their buck at the door. There are very few. In the older days, there were more because there was belief in the concept that the gambling paid, and the entertainer, they weren't expecting the entertainer to pay off at the door. Now I think they expect the entertainer to pay off at the door. In fact, out of 20 hotels in Vegas, there are only 2 now where they feature actual live entertainment, and the others are the production reviews. So this has cut down considerably on the amount of positions available.
Let me drop some names on you.
Yes.
Give me your first response.
Yes.
Bill Cosby.
Good, wholesome, all-American boy.
Richard Pryor.
Coming into his own.
Eddie Murphy.
A brilliant future, but at this time, not as brilliant, not as funny as he thinks he is.
Rocky Aoki.
My best friend, an honest man,
Flip Wilson.
my idol.
Tell us about ballooning in our last minute. I know that you're here for that and the state fair and things of that nature. What will you be doing?
Well, we will be, I'll be trying to win this year. I'm very competitive, and it's the whole motto of the Benny Hunter balloon team that second doesn't mean anything.
Your wife was injured recently.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
Where did that happen?
That was in Nebraska. It was in a training flight she was riding.
Did it change your mind about ballooning?
It changed whose mind?
Did it change your mind?
Her mind?
Yours.
No, not my mind, not at all. It was an accident. It was one of those things that happened, and then in discussing with the aerodynamics of it, we can understand and explain and rationalize.
Flip, thank you very much for sharing with us
It
this
is a
morning.
pleasure to see you, sir.
Rocky, thank you for joining us, too. We'll see you with more Noodle Time real soon. And thank you for joining us on Black Focus. I'm Jay Johnson. Have a great Sunday.
Want to go up in the balloon?
Yeah, why don't we?